I don't have much of a bio for Chris, but I've done a lot of looking on the internet, and his name has come across many, 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 many times. And we're going to talk about ufology and something that happened to him. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get him on the line. Chris, good evening. Welcome to AM 630 and the Fringe Radio Show.
Hey, Pat. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
I am doing very well. Now, you're up in the Northwest, correct?
Yep. I'm in the Northwest. I'm here in Roseburg. I just moved here 3 months back from Sublimity, which is 15 miles outside of Salem, 50 miles outside of Portland.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Interesting. Well, my friend Bill called me and said, you've got to get this gentleman on your show. I Googled your name, and I remember coming across some things that had happened. Why don't you give our listeners a little bit of your background, and let them know about you, and let's talk about some of the things that have happened to you and some events that have happened to you. Pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, I started off in 2011 on the 18th. I was out watering my yard in the evening. It started off at I started watering my yard at 8:50 in the evening and did the back garden, and then I went from the back garden, pulled my hose around, and started doing my front. I put a bunch of weed killer on there that day, and when I pulled out my hose, I had to get the kinks out, and it was like 10 minutes. I was in the back, so it was around 9 p.m. I really didn't, take it in too much of, when I pulled it out, I seen some lights out in the field that was straight out. I just, like I said, I just didn't really take it in too much, and so I pulled the hose back to into the yard to water it down. I had watered it, just soaked it because I put a bunch of weed killer on, and I did that for probably 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say. So when I went, and like I say, it was at the later time at night, and in the summer the sun was going down. It just wasn't wasn't real visible at first, but when about 25 minutes later, when I went and had to pull back the hose again, then that is when I seen this huge glass dome in the field, and it was behind the trees. I didn't see the craft that it was on top of. I just could see the glass dome. I just was like, whoa! I remember throwing I had the hose in my hand. I threw it in my yard as much as I could, and then went and was kind of just sitting there trying to look at it and try to figure out if this happened. So then I went, and it was during that time I went and I actually started to run over to my neighbors. And I'd moved into the neighborhood, I'd say just a year and maybe a half before. I didn't really know them that well then, and I stopped. I don't know why. I don't know why I stopped, but I just did. And I just went back to the road. I was like, they aren't going to believe me. I mean, to me, to this day, I'm still wondering why. But nevertheless, so I went back to the road, and it was still there. And I mean, I guess this is that time I was still in my head just trying to figure out if this is still happening,
Right.
And then it was until it moved a little bit, and then I could feel, and then it was, now I don't know if it pulsated or what, but all of a sudden, just for a second, I felt this like a vibration, like if I grabbed something that was vibrating really super fast, and everything kind of looked kind of purplish in a way, and then I don't know, I kind of felt like this feeling on bottom my loins and my bottom belly area, like I felt like I was going down a roller coaster really fast, kind of that feeling you get. And I mean, it was really different. It was really scary. And the first thing I did in my head is I went, oh God, because I felt like if I just it just would have sucked me in. Like if I felt like it was like trying to suck me in or something, and I mean, like I say, it just stopped, and I didn't sit there and just concentrate on the feeling I just had because it was still there sitting in front of me. And so then I remember I got my iPod, and that is when I was trying to get video of it as best I could, and then I noticed that it moved. Well, I jumped through a little bit. I had ran 50 feet down to the stop sign to try to get a better view of it when I started. I was like, remember, okay, you got your iPod, right? And I ran down there to try to go and get into where the stoplight was, and then it was some lights and stuff. I was thinking maybe I could get closer, and with some lights I could get a better view. And so I ran down there to do that, and I was, gosh, Pat, I was shaking so hard, and I mean, I was trying really, really hard. I was just trying to get control, take a deep breath, try to. I mean, just try my hardest. And
try to understand what you're seeing.
Pardon me?
Trying to just grasp everything you're seeing.
Oh, yeah, that was it right there. Trying to grasp everything, and so at one point in time, I had this thing on the ground, and I had my one hand holding my other hand as my finger was shaking so hard, and I still was in confusion a little bit of what buttons to even. Well, I knew what buttons to push. It just was having to get to them real quick of just doing right where they were and how to do it. I was still unsure. The iPod was kind of new at that time still. And so anyway, blah, blah, blah. So I just kind of gave up, and then I just went and, like, it was still there. And so I just kind of was staring at it, and then that's when I noticed that it moved, like, say, the back and forth 3 times. And then on the third time, I'd say 30 feet from my judgment when it moved the first 2 times back and forth, and then on the third time it went east toward McCauley Mountain. The disc was about, I'd say, a mile from me, and if I had to put a size on the craft itself, I could only put a mile size on it. And to me, I mean, that glass dome that was on top of it, it didn't look like no glass dome. I call it glass dome. I'm going to call it diamond dome.
Mm-hmm.
That looked like a diamond. It looked like the way that the sun was glaring off of it, not the sun, but the moon and the lights. It just had that diamond look. And I it was just so big in itself. But anyway, like, it's to jump over so when it moved east toward the mountain, and then I'm in Oregon. I got trees and stuff all around me and neighborhood, and I lost sight of it. And that was really when I seen the whole size of it too, is when it moved, because the glass dome went as it floated by. But then as it went, it just it was so big and huge, and I could see the lights around it, the blue and the red lights kind of going counterclockwise from each other, kind of seemed like kind of blinking. And like I say, and it went east toward the mountain, and then I find myself trying to run back. And then that is when I started to run back, I noticed directly above in the field, kind of right where the disc was, but up in space, if you were to kind of just go straight up above that, it looked like a star, but it wasn't. It was just moving really super. I don't know how fast enough. I was put my finger on it. My finger is moving. I mean, it was like I threw a ball in the air. It's faster than anything. Whoa! So here I am going and I'm like running back, trying to get back to my driveway to get the open sky, or try to find open sky. To hope that I can maybe get a better sight of it. And then, of course, I lost sight of it running back. Then my dog, Bean, he was inside, and I heard him bark. It was actually what got my first attention, and he was inside. Over my right-hand shoulder, I looked, and then this craft went over the neighborhood. And as it went over the neighborhood, I'd say from judgment from the lights on the bottom of it, I'd say by maybe about 15 by 15 feet, I guess, in diameter. as soon as when I went over the neighborhood, all the dogs bark, 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 bark. They all barked, and they all it went over to the other corner of the field that was over there, and my buddy was there. He has a bunch of dogs. He wasn't home that night, and all his dogs were bark, 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 barking, and then it sat there for a second, and then it was just gone. And that was the first encounter, and I was the only one there at the house that night. And my wife was gone, and so she ended up going and coming back, I'd say probably about 10 minutes later. I'm just telling her, oh, my God, you're not going to believe what happened, and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, I mean, I guess what could she do but just take me in, So here it is. The next day I went, and, of course, I mean, figured, well, gosh, I was still at that point in time just wondering, still was kind of wondering if I was halfway crazy at that point in time, because nobody else was around, and so I walked the neighborhood, and whenever I actually wrote to my one buddy on Facebook that was over on the other corner, because I've known him for a long time, and I went over there and met with them, and they weren't home that night. He was at a band practice, and then the other people that I knew that felt comfortable with, I asked them if they'd seen anything, and they said no, and then there was just one person. It was just one other person that I didn't know at all, and I just out of being desperate, and I just said something. I can't remember how I even approached her, but I did, and she was receptive, I guess, but she was, no, I didn't see anything. So I went back home, and maybe it was the following day or something, the neighbor on the other side of me, not the ones that I had ran over to their house, but the ones on the other side, and she's my age, was 39 at the time, and I was telling her what happened, and she's like, oh, wow, and then she went home, and she, when she had left, and she went home and told her daughter, and her daughter's, oh, my God, she came right back over 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes later, I would say 2 minutes later. They comes over, she's just in a panic. She's like, oh, my gosh. She goes, my friend seen the same disc that night, too, at McColley Mountain. Now, McColley Mountain was the area, Pat, where it was going.
Right.
And, of course, it made me feel good, because for a second there, I was thinking I was crazy for the last whatever days, right? And so I ended up being out there for, oh, gosh, every night I was out there watering, just praying for the thing to come back. Laying, going to bed, praying for it to come back, that I wanted the best sighting and blah, 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 all the shebang. Anyway, well, here it was. It was a Friday night. It was late on the 26th. And we were up watching movies, and it was almost midnight at that point in time. And so when the movie got over, and so I drug my boy out. He was kind of going out there. It was summertime, and they were up late a little bit, and they were going out there sky watching with me, and kind of were doing doing it with me a little bit. And anyway, so I drug him out there. I wanted to get out there and do a little bit that night, and so we got out there, and he we're up there 10 minutes. He wanted to go in. His legs were hurt. He had said he had growing pains. I think he did. But anyway, so I said, all right. So just keep an eye. And he was standing up at the curb. And all these nights that I was out there, Pat, watering, I had my camera on. After the first sighting, I made sure the last thing, I had my dad had got me a nice camera for Christmas, and I had it charged, so I didn't have to worry about the battery scene. Instead, I had to make sure I had it charged, and I charged, and I had it just hanging on my wrist. I mean, nights of me out there watering the thing with just, that. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we got done, and, I finished up. It was probably, I don't know, we were out there 10 minutes. And I said, well, all right. I said, and I went and walked up to the curb where my boy was standing. I said, well, it doesn't look like we're going to see anything tonight. And I said, I guess let's just go in. And so both of us just turned her back. Just both of us, as far as we just both turned her back at the same time. This pop wasn't with the flash. It wasn't a real bright pop. It was kind of a bright flash, I thought, but I don't know. But it sounded like if you took a light bulb and you threw a light bulb on the ground, and it makes that pop noise.
Right. Real unique.
Yeah, and we just turned around. We just thought simultaneously, oh, well, okay, I just thought that, transformer went out or something. Just coincidentally, it just went out that same time. And so it wasn't didn't really come into shape exactly what it was, and then it did. It came into complete shape. And all I can do is, is if you've maybe, I'm not on Skype, but you've seen my report that I made on the open mines.
Yes, I did.
I made with the Photoshop, but it was a magnetic bubble. The outside of it, I'd say that it was 5 feet by 5 feet in diameter. That was spinning. It was like fire white on the outside, and then on the inside was all this golden dust. And it is so much golden dust. It looked like you were looking at a static TV or at the Milky Way. And now all that golden dust was spinning around and floating around this clear sphere. I'd say the sphere was probably about a beach ball size, maybe basketball size, in between, a little bigger, smaller, in between those two right there, and in between size. And then it was spinning over the part of the road where they tore out and put the fiber optic cable in, and I think it was the year before. And inside the sphere, we could see a red glow. It was in a teardrop, and we didn't. My son and I really didn't put it in a together. It was in a liquid until kind of the next day or something, just kind of trying to process it all, Right. And he was only 9 when encountering it. Anyway, so it was moving at a pace of a fast walk, not real fast. It was about 6 feet from. I could have touched it. I could have put my hand out if it would even let me. It would have, probably I wouldn't be here to this day, I'm sure. But I could have touched it. It was that close to us.
Wow.
And it was, it was like it was sucking the power from underneath the wires, from the fiber optic wires that, like I said, they put in the year before. Now you could only see the bubble around the sphere. You could see perfectly all inside it, but up on the top part. But it was on the bottom part where it was sucking the power. That's where I remember seeing most of the light coming out of, where it was, and then it went away about 12 feet away, and it was like just spinning there, like okay, here, let's take a picture. Gosh, Pat, we're just so captivated, I knew what the UFO, 11 days before was a big enough thing, but I knew damn right away what it was. It's a UFO, but this. Gosh, I just such shock and amazement. What I was seeing, for one thing, that was the biggest thing, is really just sitting there wondering what I was looking at.
Let me ask you, if I could stop you just
Sure.
for a sec, Chris. The first sighting that you had with this large UFO, do you have a sense that it knew you were watching it, or it was watching you, the first one?
Yeah, I do. After time, I do feel that.
So when you stumbled upon it, I guess isn't the right. Well, yeah, I guess it is. When you came across this thing, and then obviously you were trying to photograph it and do other things with it. Obviously, it whatever was in there sensed that it knew you were out there.
Yeah. And that's what I say is I have epilepsy. Now, I have big seizures and I have small seizures, and sometimes I'll have the small ones and the petit mals, and now they'll be most of the time in the mornings. I'm real tired or something will be when they'll hit. Now, I don't know, maybe who's to say that didn't channel it in. I just don't know.
Attract them, yeah.
I just don't know. And then plus I was out there talking about, I wish they would come back. So then, I think to myself, well, who's to say they were, I'm not that far from Boeing, or I'm still not far from Boeing. I moved 130 miles from where I was at. But even before, I was, 100 at where my last house, I was 100 and I think like 50 miles from Boeing. And then in Salem, where I was at, just 15 miles away, there's a base there. It was just a National Guard base, but still it's some type of military base. And plus, I got mountains all around me, so who knows, what it could have been. I mean, we didn't see any beings or anything, but no. Anyway, I to kind of finish up. So we, excuse me. So it went spinning away. At 12 feet from us, and like I say, just sat there, and it just like, okay, take a picture. We're just so captivated. Then it sat there for, I guess if I had to count in my head, 2 seconds maybe. It did seem longer. But anyway, and then it went over the iron plate manhole cover, which was kind of a little bit diagonally there, about another 15 feet over. Mm-hmm. And then it arced off, and it made the same popping noise that it did when it showed up. And then there's a power line that was right across the iron hole manhole cover there, and then some sparks rolled off when it shot off. Sparks rolled off the iron plate manhole cover, and then some sparks went off of the transformer on the side of the power pole, and then it was just gone. And then my friend who was there watching the movie, she comes out right then. We thought, we thought for sure she had seen. She didn't. She just was just getting ready to go. And oh man, I just really don't even remember what we even said to her. It was so fresh. I just don't even remember what I said to her. My mind was mush at that point in time. Anyway, nevertheless, so she takes off. Well, when she takes off, the girl next door who had her friend see the craft on the scene that was coming home at the same time. And so she's pulled in. I'm like, oh, my God, you aren't going to believe what happened. And I'm telling her, and she's like, oh, wow, and I asked her. And then that's when I asked her, I said, well, did you talk to your friends? Did you get any more detail? And then she was like, yeah, I did. I talked to them. She said they tried to watch it, that they tried to videotape it, and they watched it for 45 minutes. They couldn't get any video. They got out of service on their phone. And they watched it for 45 minutes, and then they got scared, just took their tent down and everything and just went home. They didn't, so they thought they were going to get abducted or something. So they're kids, But anyway, fresh out of high school, so I understand. But anyway, I was kind of like, oh, that's cool, And as we're sitting there talking, and she's telling me all this, all of a sudden this streak of a disc went shooting in front of her and I. Now, my son wasn't saying anything, and he was still out there while her and I were talking. And he wasn't saying anything to with her and I as we were talking. And the reason of it was because he was 9.5 at the time. But over the neighbor's house, which was just on the other neighbors on the other side, because Brianna was the other neighbor, the other girl on the other side. But anyway, there was 2 discs above their house. One was 40 feet above. And then another one, my son said, was above it, and it was going a little bit faster. He said he could see a streak kind of behind the one that was going faster, and then the one that was that was going slower, that was 40 feet above the house and went across the street and above the neighbor across the street's house and all that. He could see up inside of it, and he could see this stained glass dome type of craft too, and he drew those on his MUFON report. And he said they were probably about, he described 15 by 15 feet in diameter, the same size. I would have said probably about the one that went over the neighborhood on my first encounter if I had to judge it by that size. And but they had the glass dome on top. Like I say, I didn't want to say glass dome. To me, it's so much like, looked like a diamond. Even the spear looked like a diamond, because my boy at 9 at the time was the first to say, Dad, that looked like a diamond. So here it is. So that happened. Boom, the thing goes. And it shoots in front of us. Here all we go, whoa! And my boy, he couldn't say anything. He said he was wanting to say, Dad, 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 but he could not. He just could not. He couldn't say anything. He was just such, and he could only say "whoa" when it shot off at light, and it zigzagged around the block. And Yeah, so we kind of stayed out there for a few minutes. Then we all got scared and ran inside. But yeah, that's my encounter. I didn't know who to call. Actually, the first encounter, I called the news. I called the news and the paper and stuff like that. It didn't go over well good. And then it was that happened on the Saturday night, and then Friday basically, because I was up there. So I think it was Tuesday. I'd heard of MUFON. I didn't even know what MUFON was. And I think it was Tuesday maybe when I contacted them, and then they were really floored. And when I said about the red liquid in the middle of it and how it was spinning, well, I think that's when it was like, it was, and then they came over the next morning. The state investigator came over, and I guess I really just didn't get the concept of how big of an episode, big thing we've seen. It really just didn't dawn on me until the MUFON people came over, and then I educated me, and then days after I heard about Bob Lazar, and I heard about the red liquid spinning element 115. But let's get to this chat, because we have people asking questions here, Pat. And
well, we've got to take a quick commercial break here, Chris.
Break. Okay, good.
In just about a minute, but. When you went to the news with it, what did they say?
They were all receptive. I thought that they were gonna do a report. I mean, because I sent the lady. What happened was I had went and I had told her about the encounter. The lady, it was Channel 2 News, which is KGW or whatever, what was in town. And then I sent her my MUFON report after I had told her that and sent her that. And I prepped this lady and told her that I was coming out and what we had seen. I had my boy. I said, and this lady was like, wow. That's like, to this lady, it was like thinking, geez, she guess she'd take me in. But I guess at that point in time, she probably could have thought I was crazy. Sure, I would have thought so. But nevertheless, she took me in. And I, when I sent that MUFON report but it didn't go over, and they never got back to me, and so I was such a fool when I hit this industry. This industry was, granted, I'll flip on the station, and I'll see UFO hunters with my friend Bill Burns and all that. Which I never in my life would have dreamed that I'd ever hook up with him, but I did, which was cool. But that's the only thing I ever knew.
Well, hey, at least you got yourself in the middle of things, Chris, without a doubt.
Sure.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Fringe Radio. Chris Brown is our guest tonight, talking about his experiences, what he saw going to the news, and kind of getting in depth with the UFO community. Let's go ahead and we got a lot of questions sent in from the Inception Radio room, and if we can post these up to you, Chris. Sure. Our good friend Red on the other side of the planet writes in and says, what's Chris's info on how the crop circles are made? And that was one question I had for you, too.
Yeah, there's another story of the days after my encounter of the computer, of getting on the computer, YouTube, reading, educating myself, and then that's when I started watching all these videos, and I started seeing these people, all hoaxing, and then you see other ones that weren't. And so my son and I went and actually got on the computer, because MUFON says, you guys could get on the computer and look and educate yourself, so that's what we did. My son and I got on the computer, and they had one where they were showing all these crop circles, and ones that you could tell were hoaxed and not hoaxed, that were real ones that had been. And my son and I, from seeing that bubble and that sphere and the spinning, we were able to boom, which I didn't think it was hard anyway. I mean, you're so elaborate, but it was the spinning of the bubble, the spinning, and then hearing about in these unique cases with these crop circles that the grass has been tweaked. It's been heated from the bottom of the blade and bend over, and the DNA changes. The age, I guess, or and all these different weird things that have mutations that have happened, in these unique ones, and so I said, well, and so there was the MUFON guy, and he's and that was something there that is I have said it before, is that doesn't connect straight with my encounter. All if I was is it was something that MUFON put there to connect with it. I don't know if it should connect with it as much, because that's still a big, mystery to a lot of people. But nevertheless, when I seen that, and I seen that red liquid in the middle, which was the most deadliest looking thing I have ever, unless it's been on TV, I've ever put my eyes on. To be just sitting there, right there in front of me, to know that we didn't feel any heat. We didn't feel nothing. So I didn't have any ill feelings, like when it was right there. So, I don't know, but that's what I guess connects with the crop circles. We've seen the videos of some ones of some orb which would look like the same darn thing we've seen going over a field and making these things, and that bubble around the sphere, all those golden dust that was forming that bubble and was making it spin, that easily, could get bigger and smaller for sure. Because, there was just so much in it. Right. And, on the Ted Phillips on the Marley Lights, he talked about how he was looking at an orb and it exploded into a bunch of different pieces. And then it all, golden dust, he said, and then it all formed back together. And I happened to be that night on Tim Beckley's show. I happened to be on that night with them, and I chimed in and I explained to them all about the golden dust and what I seen, and they were like, "Wow, that's it's just another thing that helps people relate and help people see the bigger picture." Terry Ray talks about the orange orb. Well, it was not illuminating orange, that all those golden dust inside, but because it was sucking the power from the road, very obviously what it was doing. But if it hadn't been, and it had just been suspended doing whatever, it would have been illuminating the orange, the brightness from it, with all those golden particles, and what I call golden dust would have been charged up at one time, and so, like I said, Pat, I really wasn't into the UFO thing, and when my encounters happened. But the days after, we're talking just the next day, that's when my phone started screwing up. Every time I'd be on the phone, I talk about the first encounter all day long. Yeah, the first encounter, no problem. Then I got on the second encounter. That was all going okay. Soon as I mentioned the red liquid and how it was spinning, and I started giving out detail, my phone hung up.
Really?
And I kept trying. And I did that a while. I even did that on the first couple radio shows I was on, because I hit the radio kind of quick after my sighting. And it did that. And then it was, I'd say, 3 weeks probably. It was in the month of September. So I had good weather, and I was still out watering my yard and stuff where the rain came. It's kind of at the final thing there. But anyway, here I am sitting there watering, and all of a sudden I see a Suburban come, a black Suburban. Now, I was used to seeing Suburbans in where I was at, because I was Suburbans everywhere in the neighborhood I was at, and everyone had them. They all seemed to be white, or they had Tahoes or something. And the neighbor, two houses down, is a mechanic at the Chevy dealership, right in the other field behind my house. Actually, there's fields all around me, but in that field. So I thought, maybe it's just him coming home, because sometimes he'd bring cars home from work on his break or whatever he'd be working on or whatever. But anyway, this had no license plate. The windows were they were really blacked out. You can only have them, so tinted. Now it's not like it was, in the 70s when the stuff first came out. Everybody got them as black as you could get them. Remember, they were blacker. You got them, your windows tinted out the better. Anyway, so here this thing comes by. It's going by, at a normal speed, and then as soon as it goes and it comes, and I was out watering my yard. I was standing out there kind of looking. It almost went to a complete stop. And no, I wouldn't say complete stop, but very slow, noticeably slow, like staring me down. It just to go past my house, which was just, what if I had put it in yards, on 50 yards or not even 50 yards, 30 yards, and so then to get past my house, just to speed back up again, to go right up around the corner, to do a quick U-turn, to come right back around, to go normal speed till it went, past the neighbor's house, and then it got right in front of my house again, for it to slow down. Really, we're to just walking speed is what it was going. Just really super slow. Then, as soon as it got right past my house, then it went, and it kind of sped up again and took off. Then there was some guy sitting out. I don't know about that, because there was, people saying there was a weirdo living down the street. But during that time, there were some guys parked in front of my house all day long, And the neighbor went over and said something to him, and he didn't say anything. He just got and took off or something. But then we heard later on that, there was a guy, that did something down the road that was not a good guy. So maybe that's why he was there. But yeah, so that's kind of what all happened with me, and it's just been a real power, a real emotional thing. Like I say, pal, I went on the radio quick, and a couple months after, and told my story to get myself out there, but it's been a real process. It's been having to me get out there and to prove myself, and to get my encounter, because I did not know that there was just Bob Lazar that had seen this Element 115. I did not realize. First of all, I didn't know what it was at first, but I just didn't realize that it's this Bob is really the only guy that's talking about this and that. And for my 9-year-old boy, and like I say, I was just such a fool, and and the MUFON people here really connected, and it was 3 weeks probably, or I don't know, maybe a little bit longer. After that, they had a some type of convention. It was in Eugene, and the MUFON state investigator went down to this and went to bat for me and told people about my encounter. I don't know. I wasn't there. I was just even in the mind frame at that point in time, but he wasn't received real well, and I think it really I think it threw him back a little bit, and kind of because he was really excited for it too, and it took a lot of the wind out of his sails, but he just told me, Chris, you just got to stay. You just got to keep going. You have something amazing happen, and and to a lot of people, and you just got to keep going. And I guess if they want to say UFOology, and is dead, then well, I'm here to bring it back up. It's, the key of it is
well, and I give you, Chris, credit for I've I've interviewed a lot of the state directors across the country, and have had so many different people on the program over the years. And it takes a lot to come forward with this type of stuff. And obviously, what happened to you is a little bit more than the average sighting, the guy that sees something unique in the sky. What happened to you is very unique. And to come out with it and tell people your story and let people know about it, and maybe that will draw others into, getting people to talk more about these things when they see these things.
Exactly, and that is my biggest thing right there, Pat. The thing of it was is like say is when is my thing of it is the sphere. Okay, for one thing, I was going around calling it a clear ball way before I was calling it a sphere, because I didn't even know what the heck a sphere was. Right, as horrible as it is to say. All right, it just wasn't okay. When you go tell somebody, the normal person, which I like to consider myself, people that aren't in the UFO industry and have no clue about really anything, like I did. I go explaining the orb thing to them, and they're looking at me like, you just, where did you just come out of? I'm not saying that they do. It's just, that's a big thing. And if I would have, like said before, if I would have went and got on the computer and Googled UFO orb, and I would have had all these pictures of what it looked like and whatever, but instead you had all these pictures of what it looks like through a camera, and you're never going to get, what it should look like. It should look like you can see the clear ball with a red glow. That's what you should, but it's always going to be filtered. It's going to be filtered because it's going to have that bubble around it. and it's been in space. So anytime you got the UFO and they say, oh, it's the clear picture, those are the ones that I'm really wondering of, because it's the ones that are the blurry looking that are like, it's still cool and it looks. Those are the ones you have to really consider, because you're just not going to get a clear shot of a UFO, as it's moving it. If that makes any sense, you know.
It does. No, it does.
Yeah.
It does. You talk a little bit about Men in Black. Did you have when you went out with
That was my sighting. That was, I guess I can say, I'll call it the Suburban in Black.
Okay, Suburban.
The Suburban in Black. But as far as nobody showed up at my house, it was just a continuous, my phone. And then I just would get upset about it, and then it would just fuel me more just to keep calling. Once they hung up on me, well, then I'm never going to stop them. I'm just going to continue to call. It's just the way I am. So maybe I've always kind of figured, like, maybe the UFO figured, hey, we better show up and hit this guy, because this guy's just never going to shut up. Well, I don't know. It's just been such a. It's been a real eye opener, that's for sure. And I've met so many wonderful people, and I've done things that I didn't ever think that I would end up doing over my encounter here, and just it's
no
scary. I'm still a little weary of being outside in the dark. Well, I guess I'm better now that I'm 130 miles away where I was at, but still a little bit uncomfortable. Still a little bit weary to be alone at dark. And, well, to tell you the truth, I just don't spend time out in the dark alone. And that's been one thing that's been hard,
I've got just a couple minutes left, Chris, and then I've got to call it a night with you. But real quick, and again, some people with some questions they've sent in and some other questions I've received. Sure. Do you feel that by chance an encounter or an abduction might have taken place?
Well, that's the big one, because I don't know, and I'm still to this day I'm wondering what happened. Because people say, oh well, so many people say this has happened before, and I just don't know, because I have no missing time, but. And my way is, if you're going light speed, and who's to say they're going to make sure that I'm not going to be aware of any missing time. But I've wondered if one weird thing of it is I don't remember my dreams. I used to have recurring dreams all the time, or I used to always forget my locker combination, or I was late to signing up to football practice one day, and then I couldn't get to play the whole year. And I always have those type of recurring dreams. Well, after my encounters, I can't remember my dreams anymore. And the only ones that I do remember are the ones of looking in the sky and seeing a spaceship and saying, oh, there it comes. And those are the only ones that I can remember. And I just remembered that just came to light to me, like about the dream thing lately. So I'm really confused about the whole deal. And if people ask me if I want to see one again, it's been so stressful. I don't know if I ever want to see one again.
It takes a lot out of you. Are you, excuse me, are you doing any of the UFO events at all, or just doing a little bit of radio from time to time?
Well, this is kind of what's going on with me is I was going to do the UFO festival here in McMinnville for 2 years, and then that didn't fall through, and that fell through, and I was kind of upset. And then I came out in the MUFON Monthly Journal in the month of December, this last December, and I also got a case number because I've been working with Roger Marsh, who's going to try to get my case and get my encounter on Hangar 1. And he was, I've been working with him. He went, well, where's your case number, Chris? It's come to find out that in the midst of the whole thing, MUFON forgot to give me a case number, and they forgot to submit my case to the MUFON Monthly Journal. So that happened. And MUFON, they came out, and a big, gigantic, huge thing on the month of December. But,
Well, the good thing is you got the word out. Hey, I want to thank you for giving us an hour, and I'd like to touch base with you again down the road a little bit. It went too quick, but it sounds like what you had happen is a life-changing event and something that you'll never forget about.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I'm here. I'm here to be get myself out there for everybody, and I hope that the Hangar One works out, and I hope some other shows work out, because I'm really here to plant myself and to help rise the UFO industry from a lot of these people that are saying that it's dead. And maybe my encounter hit right now for the time, and Bob Lazar's talking again, so who knows?
Sounds good. All right, Chris. Thank you
All right,
again
guys.
for the time tonight. God bless. Take care,
No problem.
and we'll stay
God
in
bless
touch.
too. Thank
Take
you for
care.
having me.
Sounds good.
Okay,
All right, good night.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.